Here now is Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells with Talk to Tom, sponsored by Greenway Dodge.
Welcome back to Talk to Tom. I am Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells from WKMG News 6. I can't thank you enough for being here. This show is part of my heart. It started out as just social media before social media was born. That's how we like to refer to it. We started answering questions from viewers back in 2004 during the hurricane season. We did it every hurricane since Hurricane Charlie, and viewers seemed to really like it. I started doing it on Facebook where people would just ask me anything on Facebook while I was doing radio cuts for the weather. And then during Hurricane Ian, my general manager, Jeff, loved it so much. He's like, dude, we're going to put you on every week. And so I can't thank him enough for being here. Talk to Tom has its own time slot, and I love it. 5:30 to 6 on Thursday, and always streaming on News 6 Plus. Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about all kinds of things from aircraft, planes, and jets that fly into hurricanes. We'll talk about satellites, how I use them, and how they help me predict your weekend weather. But first, we want to answer your questions that you have submitted. You can submit them anytime on clickorlando.com/talk to Tom. Please submit questions. If you don't submit, it's Talk to Tom. It's banter. It's play with me. Talk to me, people. Love to hear you. We can either just answer them like I'm going to do today, or we can hook up with you and maybe get you on a Zoom call and let you ask your question yourself. So let me know. Submit your questions. clickorlando.com/talk to Tom. Our first question today comes to us from our friend Gary. Why do the storm fronts always seem to lose their punch in Central Florida? I live over in Tavares, and the storms always seem to go around us. Not that I'm complaining, but we could sure use the rain. Okay, Gary, we address this a lot, not only on Talk to Tom, but also on News 6 a lot, because people seem to always feel like they're not getting their fair share of the weather. I hear from Apopka a lot. I hear from Tavares a lot. Mostly I hear from people on the coast. During the summer, when the sea breeze kicks in and the sea breeze showers start just inland by about maybe 10 or 15 miles, people on the immediate coast, their yards are burned up. All they're getting is sunshine, easterly wind, drying them out. And so in Melbourne, all of a sudden, they've had no rain for 30 days. And the grass is a crispy critter. So bottom line, over in Tavares, over in Lake County, I don't really believe, if you looked at the way the rain falls, that you're that far behind. Matter of fact, this past summer, heading into October, September and October, Lake County was the one place that was ahead of everyone else by a long shot on the amount of rain. Most everywhere else was either right at normal or just below normal. And you guys were way out in front. You were a couple of inches ahead of everybody else through a large part of the summer last year. So at your particular reporting station in Tavares, maybe you weren't getting as much, but normally it kind of averages out and everyone catches up. And over like a 30-year average, we're all very, very close. Year to year, day to day, weather patterns may mess you up. We may end up with an East Coast sea breeze that is dominant and pushes a lot of rain into Lake County, which is what I think happened last year. Or we may end up with a wintertime pattern where you're not getting much rain right now. And the reason that most of the fronts lose their punch is because the energy from the storm driving those cold fronts our way all escapes to the northeast. You get a Colorado wave cyclone coming out of Colorado. It goes to the northeast. All of a sudden, the front elongates, drags, and by the time it gets to us, doesn't do much. That's the reason, is that the storms themselves are farther north. Now, during an El Nino winter, we'll get a lot of lows coming straight across the Gulf. Then we get blasted with severe weather, perhaps tornado outbreaks. Anytime there's a low in the Gulf, things get wacky over top of the peninsula of the state of Florida. That goes for hurricane season. That goes for winter weather season. Anytime there's a low in the Gulf, it gets wicked in Central Florida. Okay, let's move on. Oh, this is a great question. This comes to us from our friend Andrea. Okay, she wants to know, what is an atmospheric river, and can Florida be hit with one of those like what was happening in California? Quick answer, yes, we could get some of the atmospheric river, or the Pineapple Express, as it has been referred to before. But let's talk a little bit about what an atmospheric river is. I started forecasting weather back in 1986. Long time ago. And things changed for us a lot between about 86 and 91 or 92, maybe as late as 93. The people who came up with the term atmospheric river were the scientists and the educators and the research team at MIT in Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. You heard of it, I'm sure. I did not go there. I went to, Western Kentucky and the Ohio State. I did not go to MIT. But at the time, back in the late 80s, early 90s, they started noticing on satellite imagery and keeping up with what was going on across the country and around the world that at any time there could be a long extended plume of moisture coming from the tropics into the mid latitudes or higher, providing a burst of moisture. And so they gave it a name. They called it the atmospheric river. It is an elongated strip of moisture that's normally thousands of kilometers long and only a couple hundred wide. And if you look at it on the satellite image, it looks like a rope, maybe, or a conveyor belt of moisture coming in. And that's what we started calling the Pineapple Express, is the most widely known one because it's the one that affects the western side of our country the most and makes the news the most. And that's when tropical moisture from around Hawaii gets lined up under a ridge of high pressure and shoots right towards the west coast of the USA, from Oregon, or say British Columbia and Canada, or maybe even Alaska. It can shoot moisture that far north, or bringing it as it has this particular spring, late winter, early spring season into California. And it's interesting. They rank them on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the most dangerous, packing the most moisture, and a 1 being basically beneficial. So if you're out there in a desert region or in California and you've been very dry, as they've been, they've had a record drought. So they've suddenly been hit with this blast of moisture, not enough to really make the whole drought go away or correct all the dryness they've had. But this swing was needed. They needed the rain. They needed the moisture. You hear people complaining about it. You're seeing homes go away. You're seeing redwoods fall through homes. It does create havoc, but they need the rain. They need the moisture. So that's what an atmospheric river is: a long piece of moisture streaming from the tropics into other latitudes. There you go. Okay, last question. I think we're running out of time here. Let's talk to our friend Sophia from Satellite Beach. She wants to know, have you partnered with any universities, scientists, or other national state organizations to discuss what you need and what they can possibly invent for more accurate weather predictions? In a word, no. I do go to conferences all the time where we sit around and discuss where we're going, what we're doing, what's new in the industry. But as far as me asking for a product from them, no. The people I complain to the most about products are the radar people who invent how we do radar. I complain that I can't interact a certain way and they fix that. Or I complain about some of the models. I don't like the way they look, the way they present, and they fix the colors for us. That's what I complain about mostly, is the tools for presentation's sake, not for research sake. Deep diving research and going places and checking out temperatures and digging hulls or cores of ice. That's not my deal. I don't dig that. I don't like being cold. Ginger just went to Antarctica and had a great time. I don't think I'll ever do that. And if I do, I certainly won't be digging ice cores. It's not me. I'm not going to go do that kind of research. I'll do the kind of research where I read data, try to figure things out and present it. But I don't want to go risk life, limb, and frostbite to find out if the ice is melting. I can't do it. It's just not me. All right, I think that's it. We're out of time. I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you for your questions. Remember, you can submit a question anytime on clickorlando.com/talk to Tom. Coming up, we're going to talk about pulling back the curtain and checking out the tools that we use and how myself and all the other meteorologists here at the Power from KMG forecast your weather. Stay with us. All right. Welcome back to Talk to Tom. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells. I can't thank you enough for being here in the second half of this show. Earlier, we talked to you, the viewers, and answered some of your questions, but it turns out my Talk to Tom producer has a few questions of her own. Please welcome, for the first time ever on Talk to Tom, Tiffany Brown, who helps produce Talk to Tom. But Tiff, you're a producer. You didn't start out doing Talk to Tom because you're a weather buff, right? I mean, you just started out because we went, hey, why don't you help poor Tom produce this show?
I am not a weather buff. I am a producer through and through. So what's cool about that is that you get to learn a little bit about a lot of things. I've been doing this for like 11 years, but weather was not my forte. What we love as producers is the fact that it's your forte, that you're the expert, that you bring all kinds of good stuff like what we can expect day to day, what we can expect in the week ahead, and all the weather details. We don't have to write that. We don't have to script that. You guys go on for like 3 minutes and the viewer gets everything they need without us having to write a single thing. But now that I'm in this position, I did have a few questions of my own.
Okay. Can I ask you a
I
question first?
Yeah, go for it.
It, how hard is it to work with me? Be
No, you're
honest.
great. Honestly, no, come on, you know how I feel about you. I think you're fantastic. You got a good positive attitude, a great personality, very chill,
More,
funny,
more,
shoots the
more.
breeze. All the things. Kudos. 10 out
Ah,
of 10.
ah, don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and dive in. You have questions for Tom on Talk to Tom. You are not just a viewer. You are Tiffany Brown, producer extraordinaire. Fire at will, Tiff. What's on your mind?
Okay, so as a producer, I've always had the
Mhm.
opportunity to see like different little interesting tidbits that I never have taken the time, probably should have, to ask. Planes flying into hurricanes.
Mhm.
Good idea, bad idea. What exact information are you getting from something like that? And how does it
Oh,
help us when we're viewing it from home?
okay. Well, first of all, you need all the information you can get no matter what. Wave height, speeds, pressure drops, wind direction, how high up the highest winds are, what are they like closer to the surface, all kinds of stuff that we can't figure out by just looking at it from a satellite. We get a good top view. If it's close enough to the coast and we get radar lock on it, we get a good view. But these hurricanes start way out there off the coast of Africa or maybe way down there in the Caribbean, far away from any radar data. We can't get radar lock on them. So without satellites and aircraft, we would be flat out sunk, S-U-N-K, sunk. And so the aircrafts are a big part of what we do as far as weather forecasting. It's the modeling that's going to make a difference for us. And sometimes back in the old days in computers, they would say, when you're running a program or you're doing a model, junk in, junk out. So in this case, we want to make sure every piece of data, every data point we have, the more we have, the merrier, but we want to make sure every piece of data is for real and has been picked up by some surface observation, or in the case of hurricanes, some aircraft observation, radar or satellite data. So we need hurricane planes. We need the hurricane hunters. I have never flown into one. It was a deal I made with my bride. We didn't make many deals.
Smart
Didn't talk about
woman.
kids much,
Smart
but
woman
I'm
letting you know not to
well.
go up in one of those because it looks terrifying from the ground. Is it
Well,
safe?
it is safe. They've only lost one aircraft, and it was, I want to say that was in 55. This
Oh,
all started, I want to say, I'd have to Google it. I think it's 1946 or 47. Some dudes in Texas on a bet. I said, I bet I could fly a jet. I could fly my plane through a hurricane. I bet I could. I bet I could. And he's like, no, you can't. Bet category one hurricane, bet I can. And he did it. And it was kind of a bet. And then they started figuring out, well, we found out a lot of information, exact location, pressure drops, blah, blah, blah. And so the information, like everything else in the whole world, has exploded. And now we have like 10 different aircrafts in Biloxi, 2 or 3 over here in Lakeland and McDill and
oh,
those areas. And now we even have drones that fly out there and go through them. So if it's not safe enough for the aircraft to go, the drones can get in there and get even lower. Like an aircraft can cut through it like a pie. They go through it
yeah.
almost like it's not really a pie shape. It's more of a hourglass shape. They go
Mhm.
and cut this way, cut this way, cut this way, cut this way, come back up and make it like
Yeah, the
almost a
designs are
58
always weird. Why are they doing all
hourglass.
the like
Because they're
zigzag?
trying to hit all the 4 quadrants and try to
Mhm.
figure out as they go through, try to figure out where the exact center is. And so that gives them a good idea of pressure, wind, how hard the rain is falling. What about the inflow and outflow that we can't get from inside the storm? But now getting the wind speed down close to the surface, well, they can't take a jet or even a prop plane back in the old days and get in and get down low to like 3,000, 2,000, 1,000 feet above the water. It's unsafe. And there's a big mix. Like when you get 100-mile-per-hour wind or 150-mile-per-hour wind,
Yeah, those things
where
are
the
moving.
actual, oh yeah, and where the actual ocean starts and the water is being whipped up, you start encountering water at like 1,000 feet maybe. We don't know. And so you get in there, and all of a sudden you're hitting water, and there's not really a surface of the water. The water's kind of being ripped up and thrown up. And so people say, well, could you survive on the water? No, because you couldn't breathe. There's so much water being propelled in the air with that kind of wind that you would drown even if you weren't under a wave. You can't survive
That's
that kind
wild.
of water that gets airborne in the air. So with that said, drones are the new hot thing. They threw a brand new style of drone into Ian this
Hmm.
past fall, and it was awesome. They thought maybe we had 100-mile-per-hour winds, came back like 110, 120. And so
Wow.
people who otherwise might not be evacuated were told to evacuate in those kind of situations. So the more information, the merrier. And yes, hurricane aircraft are huge and important. Yeah. And drones are going to be the answer for the future, I believe.
Well, cool. Thanks for giving this producer a little behind the
Sure.
curtain look at how you're going from having these cool tools to getting the information out to people on air. Because
Yeah,
again, we don't have to
absolutely.
write that part. We don't have to research that part. All the other stories, lots of hard work. The weather, that's all you guys. So, another question I did have, when it's not a hurricane, I've seen buoys used as a part of like
Right.
forecasting, as a part of what are you guys really learning from the buoys that I've seen out on water? Some pretty cool
Oh,
video, but not
yeah.
exactly sure what you
Cool
guys are
video.
doing
You
with
get
that.
wave height, you get temperatures, you get wind speed and direction. You get a lot. You get maximum wind gust. And so if a storm is approaching us and we think, wow, the outer bands look pretty impressive, and one of those bands comes about 110 miles east of the Cape, my buoy is sitting. It's not my buoy. It's NOAA's buoy, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. NOAA is in control of about 90 buoys out across the oceans and the Gulf along our coast sides, all up and down. And the buoy, there's one about 20 miles east of Cocoa,
Hmm,
and another one about maybe 80, and then I think or 75, and another one about 110 miles out. So the one that's 110 miles out and the one that's 20 miles out are the ones I like to click on the most. And I like to
do
know,
they
like,
just
what
plop
is the
them in the water and they're just floating around out there? Or are they
no,
like,
they're tethered. They're
okay,
drilled, by cable, held in place. That way, we always know where they are. They're not adrift unless they get ripped off by a storm, at which point they put them back in place. So they're
cool,
tethered to the ocean floor, and that way we know how far out, like the Gulf Stream is. We can spot it, see it. Temperatures on
yeah,
the buoys. Is it coming in closer? Is it meandering? How far out is it? And you can also get great wind speeds, wind gusts, and wave heights off the buoys. They're super, super important to the modeling as well. So remember, you need all the information you can get and then some to make the models do their job.
we're gonna go from the water to the sky here. Satellites are
Okay.
used what for more day to day, or how are we getting
Oh,
information
both,
from
both.
satellites?
Okay. So satellites are awesome. They're one of my favorite subjects. I was born in 1963. I don't mind people knowing. I don't care. But satellite data was first used in 1960 when we got the satellites up there in geosynchronous orbit, and they could see the Earth and the clouds moving between the Earth and the satellite. So the first time a satellite shot was ever used on a TV weathercast was in 1964. And it was just a
Wow,
still shot, and it freaked people out. You're like, oh my gosh, that's what the clouds look like from, what would be a bird's eye view if a bird could get, above the earth that high. Um, and we only got like one or two a day. And then it got to where they got it down to a science where we got every 6 hours.
hmm.
And then they started appearing in newspapers. Back when I was a child, do you remember a newspaper? It's a piece of paper that has news on it.
I used to read the funnies. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Every Sunday, my aunt would get piles of them and keep them for me. So
just
when I
kidding.
came over, I could, of course, I know what a newspaper is. I'm
Right, I
still
was
a
being
journalist.
facetious. Okay, if you open up the newspaper back in the day, back in the 70s, even 80s and 90s, when you open up, there'd be a satellite picture. I mean, and by today's standards, what good does that do you? But the newspaper would get it like, midnight, 2 in the morning, print it, have it on your doorstep by like 7, 8, you open up the paper, there's a satellite shot from the morning before or the evening before. And people thought that was cool. Well, now with Ghost 16, we get a satellite shot as often as every 60 seconds, like boom, boom, boom. Get them a lot. And so it's not, or every 30 seconds during severe weather. It's not real time, but man, it's close to real time. It's incredible.
That's awesome. Okay, so
Yeah.
something that I hear you guys saying a lot. All right,
What
check
is
out
that?
the radar. Check out the radar. We're following the radar. Where are you getting that information? How's that coming
Uh,
to you guys? I know it shows up in my phone. I can check it on the app.
mhm. Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Well, we have
But
live weather radar at 4 different radar sites. We have one
where's it
coming
coming
out of
from?
Jacksonville, Melbourne, Miami, and we can switch it up to Tallahassee. We can switch our radar sites around, and we get live level 2 data coming in to the powerful KMG Weather Center. So we're about, that's not real time, but it's close to real time. Like boom, happening right now within 30 seconds. And sometimes is late when it's not storming here. You get a sweep coming through every 6 minutes or so, every 5 to 6 minutes, and you get the update pretty quickly. Radar changed a lot back in 1988 with Doppler 88. When I first started in the industry back in 86, standard radar is all we had. And a lot of the weather centers used dial-up radar through a telephone line. When I covered Hurricane Hugo in 1989, just a dial-up site that was my radar that I could show, here comes Hugo rocking in. And it was just a black screen, but you could see the storm encroaching. And since then, it's gone ballistic. And now we have volumetric imaging. I can splice it, dice it, lay it on its side, go inside the hurricane or go inside the thunderstorm, show you the cloud tops, cloud heights, show you the rainfall rate, show you everything. So it's an incredible tool. It's probably the single most important tool that any meteorologist has. All right, we're out of time, Tiff. I'd love to keep talking to you. You have run me long on Talk to Tom. Thank you for watching here on Talk to Tom. We love you, love you, love you. Remember, you can always submit your questions anytime on clickrelated.com/talk2tom. And we are always streaming and available for you on News 6 Plus. I'll see you next time.